Morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is part 4 in a 5-part series specifically designed for new members or really anybody that's logging into and getting used to BNI Connect for the first time. So the first part of our series was last Monday, where we talked about how to set up your profile and what BNI Connect is all about. And then on Tuesday, we went into how to submit your online slips. The next part, last Wednesday, was where we talked about really kind of the social media components of BNI Connect, how to tap into the larger system of BNI Connect and all the other members around the world. Today, what we're going to talk about is tools and reports. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive a little bit deeper into BNI Connect in order to discover some of those things that are available beyond the home screen of BNI Connect. And then finally, as the last part of this particular series, tomorrow we're going to talk about the visitor process. After that, we'll go into some leadership team-based webinars following. Before we get into today's content, just a couple of things, a couple of housekeeping notes. First of which is this is a live webinar. So if you have any questions at all during today's webinar, please feel free to ask those questions right away. I'll see those questions pop up on my screen as we're going through the material. I can answer those questions right in stride with what we're doing. Or if it's something completely and totally unrelated, I'm happy to answer as many questions as you guys have at the end of today's webinar. We're scheduled for about 30 minutes worth of content. It's going to take about 25, 30 minutes to go through the actual material for today's presentation. That being said, I am happy to answer questions as long as necessary. The only silly question is the unasked question. Finally, this webinar is being recorded, so we will be able to share this recording afterwards. You can catch the recording either on the support site by clicking the question mark in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect or by going to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Again, that's youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. All right, so let's get started with today's topic. And again, this is the member tools and reports, so things that most likely you are going to have access to as a member of BNI that I believe can enhance your membership here with BNI Connect. Just one quick note, one thing that you may or may not know about me is that I am also a member, so I do attend weekly meetings. I happen to be a member of the BNI Wakefield chapter where I've held that same seat since 2002, so I'm a 13-year member. So in 2011, when BNI Connect came out, it was all new to me as well, and I started seeing some of the things in the system that really, again, they were enhancements to my own personal membership, or things that I used to either not been able to do or had to rely on somebody else to do that now I can do myself. So one of those things right away is as soon as we log into BNI Connect, you're presented with your stats, your personal stats. Again, when I joined BNI, there was no such thing as BNI Connect, so in order to find out how many referrals I'd given or received or visitors or anything I'd been credited for with the POMS report, I used to have to beg our vice president to please print out a copy maybe once a month or even once a quarter so I could follow up with that information. And now I can see it anytime I want to, and it's all right up here in the My BNI business. So all of this information here. Now, one thing that you may not see right away is that right next to My BNI Business, there's a thing called the My Personal Participation Report. And whereas this is just, your last 12 months and your lifetime, the My Personal Participation Report will go into really granular detail of the last 1 year of your membership. So when I pull this report, it's automatically going to pull 1 year worth of data, and it's going through each and every week's worth of statistical reports and just pulling my information out. So this is showing me from today's date last year through today's date this year. And it shows me all of the different things. So for those of you that don't know what these are at the top, essentially, again, this is the POMS report. POMS is really the attendance report for the chapter. POMS stands for present, absent, late, medical, and substitute. So those are the different things that you're either present for or not for the meeting. So that's what POMS stands for. And then you'll see these. We have RGI, RGO, RRI, and RRO. RG is short for referral given. So those are referrals that you have been credited with giving other people, whereas RR is referrals received. So referrals that have been given to your business. Now, the I and the O, inside and outside. An inside referral means that you did business with somebody else in your chapter. So let's say that you needed bookkeeping services. So you hired the bookkeeper in your chapter to help you with your bookkeeping. That's an inside referral. Or you hired the electrician to come in, change some light bulbs at your business. That would be an inside referral. An outside referral would be when you referred somebody in your network. In other words, it's outside of the chapter. It's a relationship outside of the chapter. It could be your spouse or your brother or your cousin or your uncle, or it could be your, neighbor's best friend's chiropractor. It doesn't matter who it is. It's somebody outside of the chapter that you have introduced to one of your other chapter members. So that's an outside referral. V stands for visitors. One-to-ones are meetings that you've had with other people in the chapter. And TYFCB is thank you for closed business. So if you've referred business to somebody, let's say that I referred my cousin to the website designer in the chapter. If that website designer was able to turn that referral into a deal and they made, let's say, $1,000 from that referral, they would submit a thank you for closed business, crediting me for generating that amount. So the thank you for closed business amount is what other people have made in their businesses and thanked you for generating. And CEUs are chapter education units. Just like today's webinar, you're investing in learning about networking and about BNI and about building your business. Whenever you do something like that, for example, today's webinar, make sure that you submit a CEU slip here in BNI Connect, and you'll get the credit for attending today's webinar. All right, so you can see week by week all of the activity that has happened that has been credited towards your account in the system. So this is really helpful also. If you think that the numbers just aren't adding up right, this will allow you to pinpoint exactly where the error was. For example, I've seen a lot of times where people all of a sudden they have 6,000 one-to-ones. And that could just be because let's say, thank you for closed business was accidentally entered into the POMS report under the one-to-one column. Well, you'd be able to pinpoint, oh yeah, that happened on November 3rd. And you can go to your vice president and get that fixed. At the bottom of this report, it will also show you a summary of your attendance, as well as people that you've sponsored into BNI Connect. And finally, any training that you've attended. All right, now there's a ton more information here on the home page that you can start getting to after you've been submitting online slips, but I do cover that in the other webinar about online slips, so I do encourage you to check out the recording for that one. To get to some of the other tools and reports, what we're going to have to do is to go to the scary place beyond the home screen, which means we're going to have to use some of those menu items along the top. And along the top of the screen, you should see the home button, network operations, and reports. Now, some people will also see tools and admin, depending on what your level is in the system, but we're going to concentrate on the two, operations and reports. Now, network is all the stuff that I covered on last Wednesday's webinar. This is really the social media side of BNI Connect. So it's the connections and the groups and the testimonials and really the interaction with other people that way. Now, operations and reports is really where we're going to spend the most of today's time. Operations is really for data input. So if you're managing your chapter, and this is more important to leadership teams, that when you're entering POMS reports, or you're working with the speaker rotation, or you're assigning mentors, all of that is data input into BNI Connect. That's all going to be located under operations. Reports, on the other hand, reports are always read-only. So if you're looking to get statistics, you're looking to get information back out of BNI Connect, the place you're going to go is to reports. So let's take a look under the operations menu and see what's under there. So I'm going to go to operations. And we're going to look at the chapter level operations today. And what we'll see is down along the left-hand side, this is a very traditional menu structure. So we have different options for what we have access to doing. And then on the right-hand side, when we click on each of these things, we'll see the menu change into the sub-options that we have there. And we can see we have the option to manage with visitors and meeting management and manage memberships and goals, mentoring, create email, and manage news. Now, the way that permissions work in BNI Connect, obviously you're seeing everything on my screen because I'm a system administrator. So I pretty much have godlike access to BNI Connect, and you're seeing all of the options that are available. Now, if you're, let's say, not on the leadership team, you're just a member in your chapter, you may only see a couple of these options on the screen. That's okay. If and when you become a visitor host or you become a vice president, those other options will appear automatically. For that reason, there's only a couple of things that I really want to show you under the operations menu that you're going to find helpful. Now, those couple of things are located down here. If you want to follow along, for example, under the goals of your chapter, if your leadership team is entering goals, the View Chapter Goals is a great function. But really under Create Email, there's two things under here that are really, really helpful. The first of which is this Email My Chapter function. So if you ever need to get in touch with all of the members of your chapter, you need to remind them about an after hours function or something that you might have discussed. Now, what you don't want to do is spam your members. Definitely don't use this to spam or send unsolicited emails. These should be BNI related, and they should actually apply to the whole group. But if you need to get a message out, the easiest way to do that is to click Email My Chapter. And what this will do is give you all of the email addresses for everybody in your chapter. Now, I remember before BNI Connect, if I needed to remind my chapter or ask my chapter something, what I'd have to do is go to my email and hit reply all to the last message that went out to the group. Never an efficient way to do it because there's always extra people on there or people that, had left the chapter or people that had joined weren't on the list yet. So this will always give us the most current list. I can just highlight it and copy it. Start up my own message. I do recommend putting everybody into the BCC line. That will definitely cut down on all the annoyances of people hitting reply all and then going all over the place. So that's a great way to do it. You do not have to have anybody in the two, by the way. They can all be under BCC. Give it a subject and you can send your email out. This is using your own email program. This will just give you the most current distribution list for your chapter. Now, the second thing on here, which I'm going to cover in more detail in tomorrow's webinar, but the second thing that I find really helpful is the Email a Visitor invitation. And what this is, again, I'll go into more depth tomorrow with this one, but emailing a visitor invitation is just a very quick and easy way to get an invitation out about your chapter. So let's say that you meet somebody at a networking event and you'd like to invite them to your chapter, but you don't really know what to say, you don't ever remember what the address is of the location that you meet. This is a great way to do that. And you can always test this if you want to see how this works. Send one to yourself. Again, it's just a quick template. So let's say that I'm inviting Steve Elliott from BNI Arizona to my chapter. Now I'm going to send this to myself so you guys can see what it looks like. The personal message is going to be the first paragraph. So I'm going to say, thanks for being on the webinar today. I would love to introduce you to my chapter if you are ever in Rhode Island. All right, so if I click send, it's going to dump all this information into a pre-packaged template and send it out. Now, because I put my own email address in, this did send it to my own email. You can see it has a nice branded BNI image in here. Thanks for being on the webinar today. So it puts in my personal message as the first paragraph, and then it invites them to my chapter, and it puts in the chapter location and so they can pop that right into their GPS if they need to. It also briefly describes what BNI Connect is all about. So again, I'm going to go more into depth about how to use this and why to use this and some other tips in tomorrow's webinar about visitors, as well as the one other function that's really important, which is to manage registered visitors. So you can see here that there is an option to register a prospective visitor before a meeting. And this is a way that once somebody has come back to you and said, yes, I would like to attend your meeting, you can register them for their meeting, which will also send them a reminder about the meeting. It will send a notice to your visitor hosts and to your leadership team that somebody will be arriving at that meeting. So great thing to do. And again, I'm going to talk more about visitors in tomorrow's webinar. All right, so there's some other great things under here. Mostly they're going to be with leadership teams, which I'll cover in the Leadership Team Tools and Reports webinar next week. But for now, what I'd like to do is jump over to the Reports section. And if we go over to the Reports section, there are a ton of reports in here. There's about 20 different reports that are available to you as a member of BNI. A lot of them have to do with statistics and your chapter and things like that. But there's a couple of cool little twists on these that you'll find helpful as well, both to help you to grow your chapter and to grow your own membership in the chapter. So it's going to look like I'm going to go through every single one of them, but we just simply don't have time for that. I think we have about 13 minutes left until the bottom of the hour. So I'm just going to highlight about 5 or 6 of my favorite ones, which actually is, most of them are up there on the top of this list. But if you'd like to explore more about them, I have a couple of tips for you. The first of which is just play with it. You can't break anything in the reports section of BNI Connect. So you can't accidentally register somebody, or you can't, it's just going to show you display information. So click on them, run them, play with them, choose some parameters. You'll find that you're discovering your own bits of information that way. The second thing is, if you're not sure about a report, for example, let's take this chapter traffic lights report at the bottom. The traffic lights report is a great way to find out how your chapter is doing and what you need to work on as a chapter. And it's a great management tool. It's a great dashboard for that type of thing. So if I was to run this report for this month for my chapter, I can see how we're doing in chapter traffic lights. I'm in the BNI Wakefield chapter. I can see that we're at 44 members. We have had a -1 growth. I can see what our retention is and all of that, and I can see that we're in the yellow in traffic lights. But you know what? I don't really know what most of the stuff on the report means. What is retention? How do I get points for all these things? Well, in front of just about everything in BNI Connect, you'll see a little question mark. And if I click that little question mark, for example, in front of chapter traffic lights, that will take me to the support entry about the traffic lights. So I can see here that exactly what the scoring system is and what each of these things mean. Retention, how is retention calculated? It then shows me how to get there. So if I wanted to show this to my chapter as maybe an education moment, I could encourage them to visit this help article as well. All right, but let's take a look at some of these reports. Now, the chapter roster report, which is the second report down, I find this one to be immensely helpful. If I click go, it's gonna seem pretty obvious, but it's going to give me, as we'd expect, the chapter roster. Down at the bottom, it's going to show all of the chapter members. It's going to show their classification and their company name and their phone number, and a 90-day view of the POMS report. A couple of things I'd like to point out about this report that may not be as obvious. Up at the top, this is going to show you all of your leadership team and how to get in touch with them. So if you would like to suggest an education moment, here's who the education coordinator is and what their phone number is, or if you need to talk with your director consultant about a concern that you have. Director consultants love to hear from you, by the way, so please do give them a call. You can find your director consultant's name and phone number here in the roster report. As I said before, a lot of things also are permission related. So let's say that you have been named the visitor host for your chapter, but you can't find any of the visitor options in BNI Connect. Well, it might be because you haven't been officially assigned the position. You can check here to see who is assigned various positions. If your name is not yet listed there, but it should be, make sure you talk to your director consultant or your regional office, and they can help you out with that. One other thing about the bottom part of this report is that it will show the last 90 days of activity. Now, where I find this to be really, really important, when I'm looking at this from a long-term member standpoint, I want to make sure I'm looking through this list, and especially looking at other people in my contact sphere. I want the people in my chapter to be happy, and I want them to stay in my chapter for a long time so I can build relationships with them. Looking at this report, I can kind of see things that, if I'm looking and I see that, Shannon and Christine, they haven't received a referral in the last 90 days, I might want to work extra hard to get them a referral so I can really work on my giver's gain there. Or if I see somebody, especially new members, haven't had a lot of one-to-ones and they might be struggling with one-to-ones, maybe I want to get in touch with them and be proactive and have a one-to-one with them. That's another great way to boost the morale in your chapter. All right, skipping down a couple, we have the meeting notes report. This report's a little bit sneaky because it is a powerful report. This report can help you to generate more referrals in your chapter. So notice I didn't say give more, get more referrals. It is give more referrals. What this report is intended to do is, again, it's a very simple report. If I click go, it's just going to list all my chapter member names and what company they're in. And what this report is meant for is so that you can print it out and bring it to your chapter meeting. And it's a place where you can take notes. One of the things that this helps with is that, we all have limited short-term capacity memory. I'd like to say that my photographic memory has been running out of film for a long time now. This can help to fill those gaps. I'm in a chapter, as you guys saw, of 44 members, and as we're going through our weekly presentations, by the time we get halfway around the room, I may not exactly remember what the first 2 or 3 or 4 people were asking for. And at the end of that meeting, when I go home and I'm going to do work and I'm doing things throughout the week, I may only remember the top 3, 4, or 5 most memorable ones. Just the act of writing things down will help you to retain more information about what people are asking for, making you a better referral giver. Now, a lot of people, I personally haven't used one of those ink-filled tubes in a very long time. I tend to type everything. If you are a typing type of person, you can also export this. Now, just about every report in BNI Connect can be exported to Excel. So there's 2 different buttons usually. Next to the print button, we have export and export without headers, and they both do slightly different things. If I click export, it's going to take this entire report, everything in this report, and put it out into Excel for me. Right, so if I go ahead and open this up, oh, I think it popped behind one of my other windows here. Sorry about that. So if I open this up, it is going to show me everything on that report. So it's showing me who ran the report, what the title of the report is, what time it was run at, and what chapter, and all that stuff. So that's all well and good until I try to sort this report or put it in order or resize columns or anything like that, because all these are kind of merged together and kind of a mess. So what I can do also is I can click on Export Without Headers. And what Export Without Headers does is it gives me the opportunity to have this report with just really the pertinent information, the pertinent details in there. So now I have just the columns and they're appropriately sized. One of my favorite buttons in Excel, by the way, I can format this as a table. I'm going to give it a nice color scheme. Now, if I'd prefer, I can sort this by first name instead of last name. And maybe I want to make this notes field bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and make this notes field a little bit bigger and spread this one out. Maybe I don't need this top column as big, but now I have more information to type in. You have full control over it now that it's in Excel, and you can do some great things with it. And my recommendation is Brad asked for an intro to Bob Smith, right? Just take some notes during the meeting. Even if that piece of paper just ends up sitting on your front seat of your car all week or you end up throwing it away, that act of writing it down will help you to recall that information. Now, the next one down is the summary POMS report. This is really the bread and butter of the statistic reports within BNI Connect. By default, this is going to be preset to show you the last 6 completed months of activity. So it's starting in September and it's ending at the end of February, even though we're a couple of weeks into March now. So it's not exactly a rolling 6 months. It is the previous 6 months of activity, something to keep in mind. If I click Go, once again, this will give me all of that activity. Remember, POMS, present, absent, late, medical substitute, RGI, RGO, referrals given inside and outside, and RRI and RRO is referrals received, V is for visitors, one-to-ones, thank you for closed business, and CEUs. Now, in the last 6 months, we may have had people that have left the chapter. As a matter of fact, I know we've had 2 or 3 people that have dropped. If you try to add up these numbers here, by the way, this yellow column will not, it's not an exact sum. It also includes the hidden members that are no longer part of the chapter. So these is an accurate total for your chapter, including members that might not be listed here. Now, if you'd like to see members, all of the members listed, even the ones that are no longer there, you can do that by flagging the Show Dropped Member Names option. Here's a power tip for you. As you're getting around to like visitors days and things like that, some people leave BNI and they were great members, but maybe they just had a life change at the time. One way you can go back and look to see who used to be members of the chapter is I can go back as far as I want to in this report, so let's say 2009. If I choose Show Dropped Member Names, this will show me everybody who's ever been a member of my chapter. And I can go through and maybe I want to see who, who the best referral givers were over that time period. And, I noticed like Greg Bressler here, he hasn't been a member for a little while, but I mean, he had, in his time there, he had given 151 referrals. It's been a couple of years since Greg's been in BNI. We're having a Visitors Day coming up soon. Maybe I want to go in and invite him to our Visitors Day. Maybe he's ready to come back to BNI at this point. So just an alternate way that you can use this particular report. Now, I'm just going to show you 1 or 2 more reports here. One of the reports that I want to show you, it's called the Classifications Not in Chapter report. And once again, this is going to be a very simple looking report. But what this is telling us is it's going to show us a whole bunch of categories that our chapter doesn't have. But it's also going to rank them, so to speak. And it's going to tell us, well, how many other chapters in your area does have this position? So, for example, we don't have anybody that does promotional products in our chapter. That is true. However, we have 6 other chapters that do that. That tells me a couple of things. It means that I should probably invite somebody that does advertising products. And the reason why is when I invite them, I can say, hey, yeah, there's a bunch of people in advertising products in Rhode Island. You probably want to get, jump on this opportunity because your seat is filled in all of these other chapters. It also means I'm not competing against those chapters, or this person can't just go and shop from chapter to chapter to chapter. Now, the other thing that you do have to keep in mind is that chapters, categories tend to get split a million different ways. For example, we take mortgages. Now, notice on here, mortgages as a category says that it's open. However, we kind of do have, we have a residential mortgage, but because they're listed as residential mortgage, officially the mortgages category is open. Just keep that in mind when you're looking at this because there are some of those cases where there's duplicate categories in the system, which makes this report look a little funny sometimes. But it's still a great idea. Also, if you're looking to invite somebody and you're just not sure who to invite, take a look at this and look at all these categories. I mean, engineering and computer software and videographer and commercial mortgage and cremation services and balloons and underwater basket weaving. I mean, there's just so many things in here that it really helps you to refresh your memory or spark an idea of people that you may want to invite. And the final report I want to show you is the member details report. And this report is great for before we go to a one-to-one with somebody, we really should be doing what we call the gains exchange. And that means that what we used to do, believe it or not, we used to print one of these out and we used to fax it to the person that we were having a one-to-one with. Now, I haven't owned a fax machine in probably 10 years. So nowadays, all you can do is you can go and look up somebody's profile, and as long as they filled it out, you can do the gains exchange with them. The alternative is, if you'd like to print your own out or you'd like to look it up this way, you can go to the Member Details report and click on View Member Gains. And from here, you're able to look up the gains profile for anybody in your chapter. You'll see the drop down here. So if I can look up myself, for example, and I will see my gains, and this is in a more printer-friendly format. I could also highlight and copy and paste it into an email in order to send it to the person I'm doing a one-to-one with. All right, so we are at the bottom of the hour. I do want to thank everybody for being here. I do have one more trick I want to show you guys. For those of you guys that can hang out for another 2 minutes or so, if you go back to the home page, now that you're starting to find all your favorite reports and tools and things like that, there is a shortcut menu so you don't have to go digging through the other menus in order to find those things. And you'll see here on the left-hand side, we have My BNI Business, My Network, which is all the network components in your document library that from your shared region documents and the groups and the connections and all that. And below that is the chapter drop-down. And what this is a customizable shortcut menu where you can put all of your favorite things that you need to access on a regular basis. If I click the Configure button, everything here on the left-hand side is the stuff that's in my custom list. Everything on the right is everything that I have access to. So, for example, if I wanted to have the chapter traffic lights, for example, I want to have quick access to that. I'm going to put a check in the box. It'll come over here. I can also reorder this. I can drag this up to the top of the list if I want to, and then click Submit. And now, let's say I'm going to close out of this, and that should refresh itself, and it'll be ordered the way I want it to be. So now if I want to, let's say, email my chapter, and I'm back on the My BNI Business page, instead of having to go to Operations, Chapter, Create Email, Email Chapter, I can just click on Chapter and Email Chapter, and boom, it pops right up. So it saves a couple of clicks. It also saves having to search or keep clicking through all the different menus. All right, so as I said, we are at the bottom of the hour. I'd like to thank everybody so much for being here today and taking the time and putting the effort into learning more about BNI Connect. It is going to help you and your membership as well as your other fellow chapter members. What I'd like to do is open this up to any questions. Does anybody have any questions at all about BNI Connect? It can be about these tools and reports or anything else that we've covered in previous webinars or that we might be covering in a future webinar that you haven't had time, or you may not have time to attend one of those webinars. I'd be happy to answer those questions. I'd also like to remind you that we are recording this webinar, and you're going to be able to find it in a couple of places. Up in the upper right-hand corner, what you will see is a big question mark. Click that question mark. That will take you to the support site. And on the support site, you will see the first thing you see is upcoming webinars. Down below, you'll see all sorts of training and documentation and walkthroughs and guides, but up at the top it says upcoming webinars. You can see all of these webinars were recorded. This webinar was recorded. If I click on that, it will take me to the recorded webinar. And pretty soon, you will find member tools and reports. I'll have this up here probably within a couple of days. You can also go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. We have all of our webinars as well as tons of other things like education moments, little short 3 to 5 minute videos. Find it all up there on our YouTube channel. All right, let's see. Debbie says, how do you record training you've taken? So the training itself that you've taken, when you attend an event that's sponsored by BNI, whoever is hosting that event will generally take attendance, and that will automatically be pushed to your profile. CEUs, though, you always have to enter your CEUs yourself. On the home screen or the My BNI Business page, you want to click on Submit CEU Slip and make sure you give a 1 quantity for a BNI webinar. Click Submit. And I will now have a CEU for myself for this week. Does that answer your question there, Debbie? Excellent. All right, does anybody else have any questions at all? Happy to answer those questions. All right, just one final reminder, a good referral from me. Please let people know about these webinars. They're on your regional event calendar. You also find them on the support site. Our very next webinar is tomorrow, and again, it is the last one in the member series. We're going to talk about inviting and registering visitors and the importance for doing that. That is going to be at the same bat time, same bat channel, 3 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, noon Pacific, 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time in the UK. So please do join us. Again, that is tomorrow at 3 p.m., and you can find the link to register right here on the support site. Oh, hold on. Florence has a quick question. Where does it list the number of CEUs for webinars? So if you click on the CEU slip report, it will show you the amount of credit here in the credits per course column. And if you put the quantity in, it'll calculate out. Oh, and it is 6 a.m. in Australia, by the way. Rhonda, I'm assuming you are from Australia. Thank you so much for waking up early and being a part of this. That shows some incredible dedication. Thank you so much, Rhonda. All right, so does that answer your question there, Florence? It's right here. It shows you the credits per course. It's roughly equivalent to the amount of time it takes to do each of those activities. It's not an exact thing, but it's pretty close. All right. Any other questions? I love questions. All right, anybody else from around the world on the call with us today? Shout out to, I guess, Australia. I know we have people all over the United States that are on the call today. I recognize names from, California as well as from, here on the East Coast of the United States and Arizona. All right. On that note, thank you guys so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Happy connecting.